In this lesson, we'll learn how to apply glows to certain objects within our Cinema 4D scenes. Okay, so in our previous lesson, we looked at the process of applying lens flares to our light sources. So in this particular scene, I've actually taken those lens flares off just to help things move along a little bit faster. But another thing that we can do to help add a little bit more realism is to apply a glow to certain objects. So for example, these light sources that we have up here, if we were photographing this with a real camera, we would probably see some sort of a glow around that surface. It adds a little bit more realism. It can also help to really kind of define a certain object as a illumination source. And it really just kind of helps sell the realism of your scene a little bit more. Now inside of Cinema 4D, there are a couple of different ways that we can apply glows. One can be applied to the material itself. Another type of glow can be applied to only specific surfaces. And we'll look at both of those in this lesson. So let's start with what I feel is probably the easiest method, which is applying a glow to your material. So in this case, I have this light cover material, and that material is being applied to both of these surfaces, these little light covers. So if I double click on that, or just even single click on it to open up in my editor, if we take a look at the basic tab inside of our materials, we do have the ability to add a glow. So if I enable that and wait for this to render out, you can see right away that we have a glow that's now been applied to that surface, and it's going to apply that glow to any surface that's using this material. Now if I go back, I have access to this glow tab where we can start to control things like the inner and outer strength. So if I wanted my glow to be a little bit softer, we could start to take our glow down a little bit. Now you can see it's much softer with this inner and outer strength. The inner strength is pretty much the glow intensity sort of toward the center. The outer strength is the glow strength as we get more toward these outer edges. So you can definitely play around with these and start to find some settings that work for you. They may be a little bit different from scene to scene. But if I come in here and let's say maybe bump that up to 300%, that lets us see pretty well what we have here. We can also start to increase the radius of this. So if we start to knock that down to a pretty small radius, you can see we're just limiting our glow to a very, very small area. If we come in here and take our radius, maybe something up a little bit higher, maybe 50 centimeters, now it's going to really spread that glow out and into a little bit larger area. Typically, if you want something to be a little bit more realistic, you're probably going to want to take your radius and keep that fairly confined. So that way it's just applying the glow to sort of the surrounding area or just the immediate area that you want. Now we can also start to use this random and frequency. What this will do is start to introduce some randomization in your glow between frames as you start to animate your scene, so it will sort of add some flickering and other effects. That may be something you want, maybe not. But if you do want to have a little bit of flickering in your animations, in your glow, you can start to adjust these random and frequency values. Now typically our glow is going to be set to use our material color. So in this case, my material color, it's set to sort of a grayish color here. What we should see is if I start to change my material color, what we should start to see is a little bit more of a change in the color of our glow. Now in my case, this color is really sort of being dominated by my luminance. So if I come in here and let's say maybe take my luminance and change that to something that is a little bit more blue, now you can see my glow starts to inherit that color as well. So in my case, the glow is based on my material color, and that's typically what you will have. Now what we could do is back on our glow, we could override that and disable this ability or this option to use material color. Now with that disabled, we can come in here and define our own color for the glow. So maybe if I wanted that to maybe be a little bit more on the blue side, we can come in here, introduce some blue into our glow, and now my material color stays white, but the blue color you can see starts to come into this glow. So definitely some options that we have here as far as controlling this. Like I said, I find that this method for applying glow is probably the easiest way to go, just because if you have multiple objects in your scene that have the same material, by just applying the glow in one place, we can affect all the different objects in our scene that you want. Now we also have the ability to apply glow on a per object basis. So what I'll do is go back to my material and disable my glow, so that way we can see this effect. The glow effect that I'm about to show you now is not controlled on the material itself, so it doesn't matter if we have glow enabled or not. We can still enable glow on a per object basis. So let's come in here, and I'll grab this light cover that's going to be found inside my wall group. And here we go, my light 1 cover, which I have selected here. Now, the glow that we're going to apply is found inside our render setup. So if we go into our render settings, right now we do have our object glow enabled, which was enabled whenever we started to apply glows to our material. But if we go into effect, we can add just a regular glow from here. Now this glow works a little bit differently. This actually works on a per object basis. So in order for this to work, we need to define the objects that we want to glow. That's done with an object ID. Now to set up an object ID, we're going to use a compositing tag. So let's take this light cover that we have selected here, light cover 1. Let's go to our tags, Cinema 4D tags, and let's just drop in a compositing tag. Okay, so there's our compositing tag that's been applied. What we want to do is take a look at this object buffer that's found inside that compositing tag. We can come in here and enable any of these. And let's say I have this object set as maybe buffer 5, just something that we can easily remember. So let's remember buffer 5. If we come in here and render this, we should see no glow has been applied. Actually, I was wrong about that. It's still applying some glow, but what is happening right now is that with this glow by default, it's going to look at the brightness of all the surfaces in my scene, and where Cinema 4D sees areas of very, very strong brightness, it's going to apply a glow sort of automatically in those areas. So these pixels that are lit up very, very bright, we get a glow in those areas. So what we want to do is, again, with this light cover, the object buffer set to 5, if we go back to our render settings, instead of applying the glow to everything in the scene, which is what we have now, what we want to do is use an object ID. So now with this use, we can see that our glow has pretty much disappeared. And now what we're going to do is set the object ID to 5. And now what we should see is that only the objects in the scene with an object ID of 5 will receive any sort of a glow. Now it's really difficult to see, but if you look closely, that's actually what has happened right in here. If I take my intensity and I'll bump that up a little bit higher so that it's a little bit easier to see, there we go. Now we can see that only these objects with the object ID of 5, which is only this object here, is receiving the glow. So now instead of controlling the glow from the material itself, now we control the glow on that object from these attributes here. So we have controls for the size. If we wanted to dial that down to something a little bit smaller, a little bit more contained glow, we could do that from here. We can also start to control the overall intensity for that as well. So if we wanted our glow to be a little bit stronger or a little bit softer, we have full control over that from here. But keep in mind that any objects that we start to apply this to, we really kind of have this limited now to only being applied to objects with the ID of 5. So if we wanted different glow intensities to be applied to different objects, this really doesn't create just a very, very controllable setting. And furthermore, if we have multiple objects in our scene that all have the same material, it's really just as easy, or probably easier, to just go to the material itself, set it once, and that will propagate to any objects in the scene using that material. This is really more of a specialized use, and to be honest, I don't find myself using this object-based glow nearly as frequently as my material glow. But that level of control is definitely there if you decide to use it. Okay, so that's a look at a couple of different ways that we can start to apply glows to certain objects in our scene.